Hey guys, Kiki Kannon here with Kannon Studios, and today's video is going to be about how I created Shimei's short swords. Alright, since I don't have any videos of this project, because like I said, I created it a long time ago, I decided to do the walkthrough, actually voicing and video overing. I thought it would be a little bit more exciting since everything is just going to be pictures that I'm going to be talking about. So the inspiration for this first started with Shimei, this figurine. I was a big fan of Vicky Tosin, but specifically I fell in love with this figurine, and it was definitely like one of my dream costumes, so to speak. And I specifically had, I really wanted to compete with it, so I had a contest I wanted to do for it, so I was really excited about trying to create this, and this was probably one of my most challenging costumes, I would say, especially at the time. I was working in a really tiny studio apartment, so my space was limited. So I decided that I really liked prop making, and this is something I wanted to pursue a little bit more. And I had made a lot of props in the past, but this was the first time that I was like gonna spend a decent amount of money on a tool, and it was kind of like one of my first big tools. Why I chose a lathe is kind of odd, but before I created these blades, I did create a Sailor Moon wand, and the lathe was gonna be perfect for the handle part. And I got the lathe for about $150, and I got like 3 chisels that kind of came with the set. I still have those same 3 chisels. And it was a little bit scary because I didn't know what I was doing, but I was also kind of excited to start. And then at the time, I just kind of planned everything with just pencil and paper. I didn't really do very much stuff on the computer. I still work that way sometimes. It just kind of depends on what I'm doing. And the first set of blades didn't quite work out, and I believe at the time cutting out the blades was difficult. I might have done it with a Dremel. I really don't remember, but I don't really remember owning a saw at that time, but maybe I did. It's just been a while, so I'm not quite sure. And I had to clamp it down to my table just to kind of like sand to get the bubble, and I remember that was a pain in the ass. But I just kind of like drew where my bevel was gonna be and then just followed along and just used my little sander, just a cheap sander. I actually still have it and I still use that exact sander. I never got a new one, but it was this, like a $50 sander. That was like one of the other tools I actually had at the time. And then it just took a while to make sure to try to get the proportions and scaling correctly. And for the guard, I sculpted it out of Sculpey. It was definitely a material that I worked with a lot at the time. But because Sculpey is really like fragile and stuff, I did have to move forward and make the mold once I got it cleaned up enough. So I did the process of a lot of sanding and Bondo and sanding and trying to get the cut edges pretty even. And this is also when I was getting into molding and casting, so I was very new to that. And I did the mold out of Rebound, and I did a mother mold just out of plaster bandages. So it was like really like paper thin. I didn't particularly need to use a lot of material just because I'm only gonna get 2 castings out of it. So I did my 2 castings and I cleaned up my castings. And then as far as my wood pieces go, after I got them all sanded and the edges sanded, I primed and painted those. And then these pieces on the sword, on the tops, are actually also sculpted out of Sculpey. But at the time, it wasn't really, I guess I could have done it a lot of different ways, and I can't really tell you why I decided to do it this way, because now I'm thinking like I should have did it differently, but I decided for whatever reason to cover it in Worbla, maybe because it was just a newer material at the time. Again, this was like back in 2015, I want to say. I mean, it worked and it was fine. Again, I guess I probably would have tackled it totally different if I were to like remake it. But that was so the Sculpey, wouldn't break or anything, and it just kind of stayed in there. And then I glued those pieces onto the blade using Gorilla Glue. And I had to carve out the design with a Dremel on my guard pieces for the little square design and try to get it even on each side, because at that point it was a solid casted piece of resin, and then I could just cut slits in the top to slide in my blade and then screw in the pieces so the blade would be screwed into it, and then I just covered up those holes. And then the handle screwed into the bottom of it, and it kind of made it have a nice balance because most of the weight was at the end and the blades were pretty lightweight, and so it kind of worked out great. So this was one of my bigger projects that I've created at the time. Obviously made a lot of other props since then. I'm excited to see what the future holds. I plan on working on a new sword hopefully soon. I've been saying I want to create this sword, but it keeps getting thrown on the back burner, so hopefully I'll have some time to make it. So thank you guys for sticking around and watching this very, very, very ancient build of mine. I appreciate it, and feel free to subscribe for some of my newer work. Thanks, guys.